Welcome, everyone, to Coffee with a Codex. My name is Dot Porter, and I am a curator here in the Schoenberg Institute for Manuscript Studies. That's SIMS, and SIMS is a unit in the Kislak Center for Special Collections, Rare Books, and Manuscripts in the University of Pennsylvania Libraries. SIMS is a sort of research and development group. We do lots of different kinds of projects. We do a lot of digital projects. We digitize our manuscripts. And yes, we have manuscripts. We have a fine collection. We have our MS Codex collection, which is our most of our collection. These are like the university's manuscripts that the university has purchased, they collected over time. And then we have the Schoenberg collection collected by Lawrence J. Schoenberg, after whom also the Schoenberg Institute for Manuscript Studies is named. The manuscripts that we are going to be looking at today are MS manuscripts. So these are manuscripts that the university purchased. And I'll tell you a little bit about them as we look at each of them. They both have the shelf mark MS Oversize, which means they're big. And I think this gives you an idea of how big they are. So much larger than the ones we usually look at. It has some sort of makes handling interesting, right? So please be patient with me as I try to show these to you. This first one that we're looking at, this is MS Oversize 33. This is a little bit easier than the other one because this is actually bound together. You can see on the spine side that it still has the thread here, and it's sewn onto these bands. I will see, here we start the fun part. I'll see if I can sort of tip it a little bit so maybe you can see, actually, the camera can move. So maybe I can move the camera around. It gets a little iffy if I move it too fast, but if it yells at me, I'll do something about that. We'll figure something out. So apologies if you get motion sickness, don't want that. But here you can see the spine of it, and you can see that there are several quires, or these are great big sheets of parchment that have been folded together and then sewn. And so we have probably the middle section of what would have been an even larger book. And we've lost the covers, but this is kind of fun because we can see that. If you're here last week, you will have seen a similar view into a much, much smaller book. But this is pretty neat. So get this back up here. Come on. What are the sewing supports made of? Let me take a look. I think they might be leather, but let me see. No, this is some kind of rope. It's some kind of textile that has been wound together like it's quite thick rope. And then the threads are less thick, but they're also pretty, these are pretty substantially thick. So Claire, you're welcome. I am always happy to show off the spine. And there's paper that's been pasted on there. That's why you couldn't really see too well. All right, so this is a 16th century Spanish manuscript. And I went and I looked in the little archival notes that we have to say, why do we say that this is Spanish? And I found an email correspondence. Amy, I don't know if you remember this, but apparently when you were cataloging this, you emailed Consuelo Duchke at Columbia, and she pointed to the M's and the N's, the minims, and how flat they are. And this is an indication of Spanish writing. So when we say that this is Spanish, this is why, a big reason why we think that it's Spanish, because of the shape of the letters. This is the way they were made there. All right. So as I said, this is what did I say? I'm looking for my notes here. So this is a quire psalter. So it's called a choir salter, choir, because it would have, the reason it's so big is it would have been in front of a group of people, the choir, and they all would have been looking at it together. Amy makes the point in the chat that also Spain made a lot of these and exported them. So a lot of surviving examples of these are from Spain and also Portugal, I think. We don't really make a distinction, even though those are two different countries. They were made in both places and exported to other places. So I guess it could have been used somewhere other than Spain or Portugal. So it's a choir psalter. There is some music, but we won't see it immediately. It's just the text of the psalter. And it has been heavily used. And I'm going to be a little bit careful because it's quite, the parchment is pretty stiff. So I will open it as far as I can, and it'll get easier, I think, as we get towards the middle. What you're going to see is you're going to see some what looks like water damage here. So this got pretty heavily damaged at some point. You're going to see some running ink where it ran down. There's also some damage to the parchment here. I'm going to zoom in and see if I can zoom in on that side so you can see that a little bit better. Because what they have done, come on, you guys zoom. I'm still getting used to this new camera. Eventually, I will get it. But I think it's just going to take me a bit. Let's see if we are. Let's get over here and we can see that. We're about to hit it. So here, there is a cut down. It looks like it's actually been sliced. And this was done after it was written. And then it was sewn together with thread, and it just goes right through like the M here, and then through the decoration here. Interesting to think about what might have caused that. But clearly it didn't bother them enough to replace the leaf or anything. They're like, well, we got to keep using this, so let's sew it up. And we can keep doing that. So sorry, I'm going to go zoom out again so we can get the far out view. And if there's anything you want to see more closely as we're going through, let me know, and I will help you with that. Oh, this is a very nice. It is not. I know. I mean, it is. It's quite decorated. We have again. I say again. If you've been here before, I'm always pointing out the alternating, usually blue and red letters, and also the alternating colors of the penwork decoration. And I'm just pointing out this one here is really nice, and it's got penwork even in the margin, sort of purple. Shane wants to see more close detail of the fine lines. So I'll turn the page a couple more times, and then we'll zoom in. Maybe we can find a larger one on this side of the page that we can zoom in on. Here we have the scribe, I think, was a little not careful about how many words they were going to write. And so they go off on the margin. And there's also, I think they missed a letter. It looks like it's been erased or something, and it's been put on that. Okay, here's an initial. So I'm going to close it again and then zoom out. What page am I on? Oh, I got to figure out a better way to do this. Let's see. I know what I will do. I got some slips. Yeah, this is actually where it was. I'm just going to put that there. Oh, so you get a closer up view of that one. And there we go. So let's see this out a little bit. So here you can see it's quite delicate, the sort of circle designs there. I am not an art historian. I don't know enough about sort of design work, but it's really nicely done, carefully done. Unfortunately, it's been a little bit mussed here, probably because of the water damage. But here we go, and I think you can see a little bit there in the margin. Gina, yes, we looked at the spine already, but we have the second manuscript will also look at the spine, so we'll do that. All right. Just one more thing, as I'm paging through, I want to point out, and oh, hold on, let me zoom out again. Because this is made of parchment, it has the pages have a hair side and a flesh side, right? The hair side would have been the outside of I am going to assume this was a big cow, right? Because these are really substantial pages. This would have been very large animals. Probably one per sheet. So every 2 leaves is going to be a whole animal. So you're going to notice that we're going from light colored to sort of darker yellow colored. The lighter side would be the hair side. So that's the outside. And then inside, flesh side is the lighter color. And then the darker one would be the hair side on the outside. I'm not really seeing, sometimes you see hair follicles. Oh, I see some hair follicles. There are some hair follicles here in the gutter part and there. That's some follicle action. And also you probably noticed down here at the bottom of the page is a replacement line. So why this was replaced, let's see if it's on the other side. It's just been, yeah, so it looks like on this side too. For some reason, maybe the line was so wrong they couldn't fix it. I don't know, but they actually cut part of the bottom off, and then on this side, they pasted on another section with these 2 lines from this side, and they were not careful about the hair and flesh. So here we have a hair side on the flesh and then flesh side on the hair, which is why you really see the difference in the parchment there. So I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit because there is some, oh, here's another one. Here's another patch that's been added down here. You can see this one even has sort of framing around it, which is kind of interesting. They've continued the lines that are framing here. They didn't do that on the other one. And again, why they did that and when, I don't know. Are the pages folios or separate sheets? I think that it looks like they are sheets. It does look to me like they're sheets. So they're large, very large sheets that were folded and not individual folios. Another patch here. I will admit, I've looked at this a few times before and I never noticed how many patches there were. It's sort of interesting. I saw that there was a question in the chat and I didn't get a good look. So I'm gonna, my laptop is over here. So I gotta like run back and forth. All right, let's see. Regine, would the difference between hair and flesh sides been less apparent centuries ago? Does it darken only over time? That's a good question. I never thought about that. I've seen parchment. I actually have parchment here in the room with me, new parchment. But I never noticed that. I don't know. I'm going to look at Amy and say, have you ever paid attention to new parchment? I don't know. I can imagine it darkening over time. Oh, this is very pretty. And I can also imagine it being dark and light and then not really noticing. I love how it's just perfectly centered so I can zoom in and you can see that. I didn't do that on purpose, but I like that. I like the blue and red. Look at the blue and red on that eye. It's like reversed. Reversed there. That's very nice. All right. I want to find some music, and then I want to pull out the other one. I want to be sure to show you the other one, which looks a little bit different. So we can imagine all of us standing around a, what do you call it? Not a table, but we're all standing around and we're all reciting or singing the Psalms from here. This is one of the questions actually that Amy had in the email that I mentioned earlier, about whether they would have been singing or reciting, and would they have known, would the people who were in front of this, referring to this, would they have just known the music and just been singing the music, and they just need this for that? I don't know. Let's see. There is another one of these slices. I'm very curious about how that happened. And another patch at the bottom. And they're always at the bottom. That's sort of interesting. Another cut here. Quite messy. It seems to be getting even messier. There's a very pretty initial that here. Let's see. And I'm seeing lots of chat. I'm just going to look for the music. We're going to find the music, and then I've been promised music. The Te Deum. So these are Psalms. All of these are Psalms, portions of different Psalms in liturgical order. Here we go. And here then we have, just lay that down and shift this over a little bit so you can see that a little better. So now we have the musical notation, another one of these very nice initials just right up here at the top, and another patch at the bottom. This one looks like it might even be later. So let's see. Tori asks about a cover, and Amy said the binding was probably leather over wooden boards. So you can imagine this is only part of this book. This would have been heavy. This would not have been a book that was moved, right? It would have lived on a podium and it would have stayed there for a long time. We actually have one in our collection. If I had been thinking about it, I would have brought that one out too. It's a complete, I think it's an antiphonary, and it's very large and it's very heavy. And it was in my exhibit last year, which is fun. Samuel asks, are there illustrations or paintings of these books being used? I have seen illuminations and illustrations of them being used. And yes, they're up on sort of a podium. And Amy is sharing a link to an illumination in the chat, and I'll put that in the notes too. Susan says they were all singing. The psalm tones were not typically written down. They knew the tones from memory. Okay, so that's very helpful to know. Karen says, back to the parchment question, my parchment at home here is slightly darker on the hair side and creamy white on the flesh side. The hair side tends to get a little darker over time. So we have authority. Thank you, Karen. All right, and I think I'm all caught up on the chat. So this is MS Oversize 33 coming to the end, and then this ends here. So there would have been more at the front and the back. So I'm going to switch cameras so you can see how I'm moving around the room to here we go. No, you got to zoom. Come on, zoom in. Here we go. Here I am. Hello. Can I zoom in more? I don't want you to see me. I want you to see this table. All right. So here I am in the room. I'm going to move the Logitech so you don't have to look at that. Here we go. So here's MS Oversize 33. And it belongs here. So luckily, it's not actually that heavy, even though it's large. It's more cumbersome than heavy because it doesn't have those boards. So I'm just going to Set that there. There we go. And this one is even larger, and I haven't taken this out yet today, so we're going to see how this goes. And while MS Oversize 33 is bound together, I believe that MS Oversize 4 is more fragmentary. So it's a little bit more of an adventure. All right. So here is, but I love it because it's pretty. It's really pretty. Yeah, Maria, she says, get to see it in actual scale. So this is why I wanted to do this, because if you follow, and I encourage you to, if you go to the record and you follow the link to either of the digital versions, you'll see digitized images, and you can't tell how big it is, right? You can't see that it's like half as tall as me, which you can see here. So I know you can't see it very well, but I'll turn on the other camera in a sec. I just wanted you to get a sense of kind of here it is. So back here. All right, let's see. Hopefully this will work. All right. This new camera is a little bit temperamental sometimes, but I'm hopeful. Come on over, yeah. There we go. Look, I even put it in a pretty nice place. So this is what it looks like on the front. I hope you understand why I wanted to include this, because it's really pretty. The other one is very cool, but it is not quite as pretty as this one. This one is quite colorful, and I'm going to try to get a little bit more. I don't know if that actually got more. Oh well, this is fun. We have, for one thing, we have music, which is always a little fun, and bright blue and red around the edges. This initial that is gold. It is what we call shell gold. It's not gold leaf, which would be very, very shiny, but it's just a gold paint, but it's pretty. You know, it shows some amount of care and some amount of cost. So we'll turn this over and see the other side. Oh, right. And this is another thing that's neat about this one, is these initials in the body of the book are these sort of black ribbon initials. And let me tell you a little bit about this one. So this is fragment of a choral antiphonary. So the antiphons were sort of call and response songs that were sung during all kinds of holy rites. And in this regard, this is for the divine office of the Holy Week. So we actually begin with matins on Holy Thursday and go through Vespers on Holy Saturday. So that is what is shown here. And I will show you as many more of these leaves as I can before we have to say goodbye, just so you get a bit of sense. Tori is asking about the staff, which has 4 lines. So if you are familiar with modern music, in modern music we have 5 lines on a staff, and here there are 4 lines. What I can tell you, Tori, is that this is how it was done at this time, sort of from medieval, even before this time. You find earlier manuscripts, there isn't a staff at all. And you have just the notes, which are called neumes, that are sort of written over the text, sort of indicate going up and down, and it gives sort of an indication of the relative time of them, but there's no staff at all. So it's almost like you have to know the music already. You can't sight read it the way you can sight read like modern music or even this. And I don't know exactly when we went from 4 lines to 5 lines. If anyone else knows more, but this is the way This is the way it was through at least the Renaissance. All right, so I'm going to get another, let's see, more of the same. Ooh, I'm saying ooh because the red, the red ink is really nice. I will say it's nice to have one that isn't damaged. The MS 33 is quite damaged. All right, Susan says 4 lines were common for chant. They used 5 lines for other music starting in the 17th century at least. All right, but did they keep using 4 lines for chant after that? Yes, and Murray is pointing out that the little C-shaped thing at the start of the line is the clef. So this is the clef. You can see it's the same on every one, and that's showing where C is, I believe. I studied medieval music in college, if you can believe it, but I have been out of college for a very long time, so I don't really remember a lot of it. Oh, here we have another pretty colorful initial here with some gold and with the blue. It's really nice. And I think maybe somebody had a snack. I don't know. There's some kind of splatter down here that looks almost like somebody sneezed. But the initial is very pretty. And here's more of here we go. Here's that C clef. Neat. All right. Oh, we have a little hole. Can you see that? No, I think it's a little bit too high. There's a little hole in the parchment. Not unusual to see little holes. This one hasn't been sewn up though. All right, I think I can get one more leaf for that. Have to go. All right. This is so great. This is so great. And the person who asked before about, the sheets being individual leaves or if they were sheets, this has been taken apart, clearly cut. And I don't know if this would originally have been a whole, like one long sheet, or if it would have originally been done, been a single leaf, because it's just been cut down the middle either way. Too bad. So here we have another one of these kind of ribbon initials, which I have seen in other kinds of manuscripts too. Here's a bit more. Let me move this to the middle. There. That's very nice. I like that. They look more modern to my eyes, I think, than the other ones. It's sort of an interesting time. All right, Amy says the type style of initial is also referred to as strap work, which makes sense. I mean, I was calling it ribbon. Is it also called? It is also called ribbon. Okay, I thought so. And Karen says the lines ribbons are called cadles. Neat. So there's some cadles there. This one doesn't have them, but it's still, I love that. And it's shaded sort of around the edges. And that was shaded inside too. Really nice. All right. What? It's 12:30. One more. I'm going to give you one more. I want to do one more. I understand if you have to go because I know we're at time, but one more, and we get a colorful initial too. Here we go. This will take us out. MS Oversize 4. There we go. So we are only the last in a long, long line of people to stand in front of these books and all look at them together. Although we weren't singing, maybe next time we can have a sing-along. Yeah, there we go. All right. Thank you everyone so much for coming and playing along with this experiment with size. And I hope you come back. We'll be back next week to look at a couple of Arabic manuscripts, and then in 2 weeks, every Thursday. And this has been recorded and will be online within a couple days. So thank you so much, and we'll see you later.